demands of nutrition and protein, this cell is surrounded by small cells. It is seen in case of oocyte and nervous cells, where nervous cells are covered by the neuroglial cells and oocyte is covered by the granular cells for fulfill its nutrition demands. So this follicle, which is having zona pellucida and multiple cuboidal layers of granular cells, is known as primary follicle. Now, this follicle, primary follicle, is also known as pre-antral follicle. Because after this, the cells of granulosa are having small cavities. So cells of covering of primary oocyte will fall in cluster manner, and these cells will form small vesicles or antrum. And there are multiple layers of cuboidal cells known as granular cells. This follicle, which is having small cavities and covered by a basement membrane, having primary oocyte and zona pellucida formed by glycoprotein and acid proteoglycan. There are 4 types of glycoproteins in case of human being and 3 or less in case of other primates and lower animals. Now these cavities or antrum are formed, which are known as antrum folliculi. These antrum folliculi or vesicles are filled with a liquid known as liquor folliculi. This fluid is acquired from the granular cells and surrounding stroma of the ovary. As the time passes by, this follicle is known as vesicular follicle or antral follicle. As the time passes by, these antrum or vesicles coalesce and form a single large lake or cavity. The structure of follicle after coalescence and formation of a single lake of fluid, the structure of the follicle will be like this. Here the stromal cells start condensation, and these condensed cells of ovary stroma are known as theca folliculi. So at this stage, here is primary oocyte frozen in diplotine prophase first, vitelline membrane, perivitelline space, zona pellucida, antrum folliculi, liquor folliculi, granulosa cells, and theca folliculi. Now, after this, these cavity or antrum coils to form a single large cavity. These are cuboidal cells rest on a basement membrane, and here is a big cavity which is formed by caul sense of these all antrum, and here is eccentric primary oocyte. Now from central to it is pushed down or eccentric position by the developing antrum folliculi or follicular antrum. Here is, these are granulosa cells, and here is again zona pellucida, non-cellular glycoprotein layer, and again primary oocyte. This type of arrangement where one cell is large and for its nutrition purpose it is surrounded by small cells is known as cytophysiological complex. This follicle having liquid folliculi and follicular antrum which is single and large, and it is having theca cells which are differentiated in two layers. Inner layer is having round cells known as theca interna. These cells, which granose cells, form corpus luteum after ovulation, and outer connective tissue and stromal spinal shaped cells layer known as theca externa. Theca interna having round cells, and outermost theca externa cell layer which is formed by irregular dense connective tissue and spindle cells of the ovarian stroma. So this structure is known as secondary follicle. This is the most durable phase of follicular development, and it remains for up to 37 hours. Before 3 hours of ovulation, ovulation is a process by which the secondary oocyte is discharged in peritoneal cavity, and remaining part of the mature follicle form corpus luteum. Here, these cells which are surrounded outermost part of granulosa cells are known as zona granulosa or membrana granulosa. These cells surrounding the zona pellucida and primary oocyte are known as cumulus oophoricus or cumulus ovaricus, and these cells which are connecting the outermost of granulosa cells and the developing primary oocyte are known as discus proligerus. So here theca externa, theca interna, these are mural layer or zona granulosa cells. This is antrum or lake and known as antrum folliculi, and cells which are closed in primary oocyte and zona pellucida are known as cumulus oophorus or cumulus ovaricus, and the cells which are connecting the primary oocyte from the surrounding membranous layer of granulosa cells is known as discus proligerus. After that, there will be LH surge. As you know, this all process of follicular development and ovulation is controlled by HPG axis. It is hypothalamus, pituitary, gonadal axis. The hypothalamus secretes gonadotropin releasing hormone. It is a polypeptide of 10 amino acids. Under influence of this gonadotropin releasing hormone, anterior pituitary or adenohypophysis secrete the luteinizing hormone and follicular stimulating hormone. These are glycoproteins, and under the influence of these, the ovaries, which is having endocrinal cells, secrete estrogen and progesterone. The follicular stimulating hormone controls the development and growth of follicle, and under influence of FSH, these theca interna cells secrete estrogen precursor steroids, which are diffused inside the granulosa cells and converted in estrogen. Under influence of estrogen, before 3 hours of ovulation, there will be increased level of luteinizing hormone. This LH will induce the primary oocyte to complete its first meiotic division. After first meiotic division, one secondary oocyte and one other cell, which is lake in cytoplasm but having the half number of chromosomes and half amount of DNA, is formed, which is known as first polar body. So, after completion of first meiotic division, there is formation of a large cell having almost all amount of primary oocyte and a small cell having almost no cytoplasm but having 2n, 1n number, double structure or double stranded chromosomes and 2n amount of DNA. This is known as first polar body. And other cell is large, it is having 1n double structured 23 chromosomes and 1n amount of 2n amount of DNA. This is known as secondary oocyte. When this first meiotic division is completed, now follicle is completely mature, and this follicle is known as Graafian follicle. This Graafian follicle span almost all the cortex of the ovary. It span almost all the cortex. I will redraw the structure of ovary. Inner core, the outermost part, and here are the end of fallopian tube. it is having fimbria. This is known as infundibular part, and here is ampulla, wide part of fallopian tube. The follicle which was present here, a cohort of 10 to 20 cells entered in growth and development phase, but almost all follicles except one are become atretic and form the interstitial part of the ovary, a process known as atresia. By atresia, these follicles become atretic and form the interstitial part of the ovary, and only one follicle will form the Graafian follicle, which is having outermost covering of theca folliculi, now differentiated in theca interna and theca externa. So here is outermost layer of theca externa, and here is the round cells of theca interna, multiple layers of theca interna cells, these cells of theca interna and theca externa are derived from the ovarian stromal cells and connective tissue. Beneath the granulosa cells, beneath the theca externa cells, there is a basement membrane. Now there is a population of cuboidal granulosa cells of zona granulosa or zona membranosa granulosa, and it is multi-layered, and here is antrum, cells of cumulus oophorus and discus proligerus. Here is again amorphous layer of zona pellucida, and inside it here is now secondary oocyte, which is also stuck in metaphase of second meiotic division. At this stage, chromosomes are arranged in a plate known as metaphase plate, and here is first polar body. So LH is having three functions. It increases the pressure inside the follicle, so increased pressure will help in rupture of the Graafian follicle pressure. It will increase the enzyme collagenase, which will melt the collagen fiber and help in ovulation, and it will make the fimbriated end of the oviduct movable. So fimbria will have a sweeping moment around the ovary to capture the ovulated secondary oocyte. So increased movement of cilia. At the same time, the prostaglandin level will increase. This increased prostaglandin level will contract the smooth muscles of the surroundings of ovary. So these all factors will induce the ovulation by melting the collagen, by increased contraction of smooth muscles of ovary, by fimbria movement, and by increased pressure of the follicle from inside by increased level of LH. This LH will rapidly proliferate the granulosa cells and theca cells. Now, this secondary oocyte will be shared from the Graafian follicle having a secondary oocyte, first polar body, and covered by zona pellucida, and the cells of cumulus ovophorus, which surround the zona pellucida and secondary oocyte in a corona manner, now known as corona radiata cells. It's crown-shaped manner. These cells are known as corona radiata cells. So release of secondary oocyte from the ovary is known as ovulation, and this is known as ovulation, and the remaining part of the secondary or Graafian follicle, now known as corpus luteum. The remaining part of the Graafian follicle, now known as corpus luteum. This corpus luteum will act as an endocrine gland. Now, when the sweeping movement of embryo and contraction of smooth muscles of fallopian tube and fluid secreted by the covering epithelium of the oviduct will capture the secondary oocyte inside the fallopian tubes. Now, this follicle, this secondary oocyte, and this second polar body covered by zona pellucida and granulosa cells known as corona cells now. This is secondary oocyte. It is not definitive ovum. This is when sperm reaches here. After touch of sperm, it will complete its second meiotic division, and the male and female pronuclei will fuse to form a zygote. In case of absence or lack of sperm, this secondary oocyte will degenerate and will be engulfed by macrophages of the fallopian tube. Now, the remaining part of the follicle, that is Graafian follicle, is known as corpus luteum, and it will act as endocrine gland, and it will secrete the majority amount of progesterone and a small amount of estrogen. The lifespan, the life cycle or life of the secondary oocyte is 24 hours in absence of sperm, and the life of corpus luteum is 14 days, and in case of pregnancy it is up to 4 months. So it was about the formation of female gamete known as ovum, and it was about the oogenesis. In next lecture I will talk about spermatogenesis, the formation of male gamete.